Hi, I'm Amanda Morgan, and this is Not Just Cute, the podcast, where we discuss all kinds of topics to help bridge the gap that exists between what we know and what we do in early childhood education. We're starting conversations with academics, authors, decision makers, educators, and parents so that together we can improve the quality of early childhood education while at the same time protecting and respecting the childhood experience. What if you had the opportunity to rethink early childhood education in a way that would better serve all children? Today's guest did just that, and we're diving deep into how one district's innovative approach is changing the future for their children and families. Michelle Scogin, the Director of Early Childhood and Learning Services at Prosper Independent School District in Texas, took on the challenge of creating a new dynamic pre-K program for her district. Her bold vision led to the implementation of a blended model that integrates students with special needs alongside their typically developing peers, led by passionate educators with expertise in early childhood, ESL, and special education. We'll talk about how this program is not just making a difference in the classroom, but also shaping a whole new approach to early childhood education in their district. When Michelle's district first rolled out this blended model, it was spread throughout existing schools across the district, and she and her team learned how to rearrange and rethink elementary school environments to fit the needs of their program. Today, the program and support for the program has grown so much that it's now housed in the Brenda Calhoun Early Childhood School. I was able to visit the school last year for a training, and I'm telling you that it was a child development nerd's dream come true. It was amazing to see a school that was clearly designed and built with young children and holistic development in mind. While it's a large building, each wing of the school was organized into a pod of 6 or so classrooms, giving a small school, tight community feel and encouraging social engagement without the overwhelm. Along the textured and engaging hallways that connected the pods were themed playrooms, teacher planning stations, specialist rooms, and one of my very favorite features, the school was built around this fantastic playground so that any child who tried to run away from the playground could only run into the school and not away from it. Now, that right there tells you that they know who they're building this for. And on top of it all, everything about the school was child sized and accessible to all abilities. And the physical building was just the start. Inside, I met a team with an energy and a passion that is hard to replicate. While about half of the students attending the school are identified as special education students, many of them are able to integrate into gen ed classrooms when they move on to kindergarten. And the special ed students aren't the only ones who benefit. One teacher who taught pre-K previously said she sees more growth in her students in this blended model than she did in her regular classroom settings. As Michelle told me, at the end of the day, your goal is to do what's best for children. You want to meet the needs of the students you're serving, and you want to be great at it. And it's clear that that's exactly what they're doing at Calhoun. I'm sharing this episode for several reasons. One, I want you to see and be inspired by what they're doing. Whether you literally reach out to Michelle and go to Prosper, Texas to see the school, or just go to the show notes to see the videos and the images of the school, I want you to be inspired by what's possible. I want you to see what happens when you start small but dream big, and when you build a team around a passion and a purpose. And number two, I want you to hear Michelle's full circle story and consider your own. She shares an experience she had as a young preschooler herself and how that impacts the work she does today. I hope you'll take a moment to think about the big and small moments that have shaped you and consider how what seems like a small moment in the work that you're doing today may truly be shaping big moments for the future. You can find this episode's show notes, which are always full of links, tidbits, and resources at notjustcute.com/podcast/episode 79. Before we jump in, a quick reminder that you can share the importance of play through the Why We Play parent letters. You can check them out and grab a free sample letter by going to notjustcute.com/why we play. As I've said over and over, people don't value what they don't understand. So let's do our best to help others understand and value play. The Why We Play letters were written to help you do just that. Grab your free sample letter today at notjustcute.com/why we play. Working with the team at Brenda Calhoun Early Childhood School was definitely a 2024 highlight for me, and I am so excited to share a little bit of their story with you. If you want to learn more about the blended pre-K model or how to advocate for change in any program, this episode is for you. Let's jump in. Michelle, I am so excited for you to share your program and your journey with listeners today. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Amanda.
Well, I wanted to start out by letting people know a little bit about your program and its mission. So if you could tell a little bit about that, I found it so just amazing. It gives me goosebumps to think about it. So if you could summarize it, share it with people, I would love for them to learn about it as well.
We have started a blended pre-K program, and what has just been fascinating is to see the growth over just these. We're in our year 4 of this program. It's comprised of teachers who are triple certified. So they are early childhood certified, special education certified, and ESL certified. And so students in the state of Texas who are 4 by that school year can attend, and who are eligible by one or more of the eligibility criteria set forth by TEA. So that means students who have a parent who is in active military or disabled vet, who are economically disadvantaged or qualify for our National School Lunch Program, possibly a foster child, Texas Star Award given by the governor, and the majority of our students qualify as emergent bilingual, meaning that another language other than English is spoken in the home. Our program also does have 66 students who are staff students. And so that is part of our superintendent's recruitment and retention. And it's our staff love it for their children. In the program, with the triple certified teacher, we also have 2 paraprofessionals that serve our students. So 3 total adults that are in the classroom of the blended model. The blended model, in the instance of blended, is that no more than 49% of those students have a special education eligibility, but then the 51% of the students are general education students, meaning they're just typically developing 4-year-olds in the program. Our mission is to basically cultivate a sense of wonder and joy in exploring, understanding a world through play-based learning experiences and developmentally appropriate practices. Our commitment is to foster like a safe, nurturing, supportive environment, and helping students develop that executive functioning and self-regulation skills, which we know are essential for learning. What we love seeing in this program is that children, whether they're general education or special education students, they are gaining and benefiting by learning that, wow, this is how Johnny learns. This is how I learn. I have areas of growth in this area. I am really strong in this area. And they really learn so much empathy, and that differences are a good thing, and that we're all unique in so many different ways. So that has been our model, and it's evolved.
It's a process. It would have to be a process to build what you've built. So when I got to come work with your team, I was just blown away to see not only, first and foremost, the team that you've created. And like you said, that retention and recruitment is a focus, and you can tell because you have really high quality teachers there who were really engaged and passionate about what they were doing. But then also the facility that you had built was clearly built for young children, right? I've talked on this podcast before about the problems that we run into with pre-K programs that are just kind of squished in and expected to be elementary school light, and that it doesn't serve children the way that we know they need to be served. And so to walk into your building and see not just the physical design, which was amazing. Everything was preschool sized, right? And just the architecture, every single piece was so thoughtful and focused on meeting the needs of young children and providing these oh, do you call them pods, like cohorts, the
Yes.
groupings that you
Yeah.
yeah, so that there was this big school, but it had a small feel because they had these teams, and just in the way that it was organized, but also the architecture. And then to see also all of the holistic resources so that it just every single piece had been thought of, like you said, from the triple certification, but then there are also specialists throughout the building that don't just, I think we talked about it, they don't just have the corner of a closet, but they have an actual space with playthings to do real play-based therapy and assessment. Just the whole piece. I tell people this frequently when I have the opportunity to go and visit different programs. And every now and then I get a place like yours where I walk in and look around and think, oh my goodness, they're actually doing it. We're taking all the things that people talk about and say, I wish we could do this. I wish we could do that. And it just looks like you're doing all the things. I mean, there's always room for growth, and I'm sure you have your eye on more things, but it literally gives me goosebumps to see people who take all the best information and all the best research and they get together as a team and a community and they make it happen for children rather than just wringing their hands and saying, I wish we could, but oh well.
I do think we're very blessed. And I will say this, basically, this never could have happened without, it starts at the top. It starts with the
Mm-hmm.
leader. And we're fortunate to have an amazing superintendent in Dr. Holly Ferguson, because she truly believes and understands that while most superintendents might look at, oh, we're focused on the K through 12 because, that's the continuum of elementary, middle, and high school education. But pre-K has been a hot topic for many years, and people still don't really understand it. But she gets it, and she understands that that's the very essence and foundation to really. It's designed to level the playing field for our qualifiers and our children, right? In a
Mm-hmm.
perfect world, I would love to see where we fund and believe that pre-K should be funded for all children who parents want to send them
Mm-hmm.
to learn, because not every parent has the ability to either qualify through this way or to afford to pay the high costs that pre-K centers or early childhood, facilities charge. That being said, when we look at the mission of our own district, we not only the principal at Calhoun, but my goals have to be aligned to go after the same initiatives that our superintendent. And that's what's so great is that, her goals are innovative learning and providing, a supportive foundation for all students to learn at high levels, right? So
Right.
that's why we have this blended model. That's innovative learning for
Mm-hmm.
all students. It's not expecting that our special education students will all just be with other special education students where they don't have peer models to learn from, right? Her second goal is empowering and equipping educators. Now more than ever, we have got to make sure our staff feel supported and understand and feel there's a sense of community within their own planning, and that they
Mm-hmm.
have that time to plan and they have that time to have PD. Like after you left, the survey that we sent out showed they were so thankful because it wasn't just a PD that could have been provided to a K through 12,
Right.
teacher. It was specifically designed because you were focused on the work that they do day in and day out. And they appreciated that. And they're like, can she come back again? Can we have more of this? And then third initiative and things that we're going after is partnering along with engaging our families in the community. Because for most of our families, this is their first experience in public education. So many of them don't understand. Maybe they didn't go to a public school. Maybe they didn't even go to a school in the United States or Texas. We are growing at such a rapid rate that, we have a lot of IT and industry here in the North Dallas area. So we're one of the fastest growth districts currently. And so we are having lots of families who don't feel connected until they come to school. And our goal is to say, hey, we're here for you. We want to help partner with you. We provide parent trainings, we provide family engagement activities, and we bring them in. And this year, because it's our second year in having all of our facilities under one roof, which has been a game changer, by the way, we've been able to, in each of our pods of 6, so there's 6 pods of 6, we've been able to put families in feeder patterns so that they'll be learning when they come to the family engagement nights. They'll meet other people. Oh, your child's going to go to kinder at this school. My child's going to go to that school. So last year we were opening the school and we didn't have the foresight to do that, but that's just another layer in helping to engage our families. And many of them, post-pandemic, they're just now getting out and going into parks and being more social. But let's say they moved there when their child was born and they pretty much didn't leave their house. And so they might not know the person 3 doors down whose child also goes to Calhoun, but now they will know because they're coming to the family engagement nights and they're learning activities, and they're learning through play, because what we do is we have the children show their mom and dad how they're learning. And the parents are like, oh my goodness, this is so fun. I thought y'all were just playing. Well, we are playing, but that's how they're learning.
Yeah, I think that's just another example of that holistic approach that I saw that you see in every little detail, just that thoughtfulness, and recognizing, like you said, that comes layer upon layer. It doesn't all happen all at once, but to say, how else can we better build connection and meet all of these needs, and that those parents have needs as well, that they need to feel connected and supported with one another. I want to, in a minute, talk a little bit more about how you built that support throughout the community and through your school administration. But I want to start with your own journey, because I know that my understanding is you haven't been in early childhood your whole career. So I would love to see what your journey looked like.
Well, first and foremost, I actually was a Head Start child. So I got to go to Head Start, and that was pivotal. My mama was a stay-at-home mom, and I was the oldest of 4. And so I remember it was like Christmas when I learned that I was getting to go to Head Start. I had no idea what that meant, why I got to go to school, but I knew I was 4 and I was going to school. And so I still have vivid memories of the impact that made on my life, and how I viewed school, because I didn't go to a daycare. I pretty much just went to church and then played outside. There was no technology. And so I remember being the third little pig in the Three Little Pigs play. And I remember my teacher telling me that I was the third little pig because I was the wisest and I cared for others around me. And I'd never had someone speak to me that way. And I never thought of myself as a leader or someone who cared for others in my charge, right? And I still think about that time. And fast forward, I was a student. I always knew I loved children. I babysat from the age of 9. So early childhood was always in my blood. And I went to UTSA. I ended up graduating from UTSA and got my early childhood through 6th grade, and began teaching in San Antonio at a true Title I campus. And I taught 2nd grade. Then became a mom of 2 girls at that time and could afford to stay at home, and did. So I stayed at home and did all the things you do. You don't really stay at home.
All right.
I volunteered at different things, and I did lots of different things at that time. But then our world, we moved from San Antonio with my husband's job to the North Dallas area, and I had this desire to come back to work because my daughter was going to start kindergarten, and I was like, what would I do with my time? So I started teaching kindergarten, and then taught first and then second. And Dr. Ferguson was my principal at that time. And she said, you really need to go get your master's and get your administration. And I was like, I love teaching. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be someone's boss. Or she's like, no, it's more than that. We're growing and we're going to need leaders. So I went and got my master's. And during that time of getting my master's, I started mentoring new teachers. So as we were growing, mentored teachers for 1 year, then I became an assistant principal for 1 year. And before that year was over, I was named principal of the school that I had started teaching at. And so I was at that campus, and then I opened another campus. So I was a principal for about 10 years. Then during that time, I got my superintendent certification because I was still wanting to learn. During the times of me being a principal, through Dr. Ferguson, she had recommended, my world was so small. My view was our district. And at that time, we had like 1,000 to 2,000 students. So we were very much small town. And she said, I was able to go through Raise Your Hand Texas Harvard, which is now Charles Butt Foundation. She said, you might want to apply. It might be a great experience if you get to go. And I thought, Harvard? I couldn't even imagine being able to go to Harvard and walk the streets where brilliant people go to school. But I did, and I interviewed for it and wrote, and I was able to go actually 3 times and
Wow.
attend different principal institutes and be put in a cohort with other principals who either the first time it was principals who had been only a principal for less than 3 years. And then the next time it was about an evolving vision and broadening. And I was in cohorts with people who were principals from Australia to India to California, all over the world, right? And I thought that the issues and the struggle that I was dealing with as a principal in Prosper, Texas was so unique. And being in this cohort and visiting with people from all over the world, all walks of life and all levels of, experience, I realized we all want the same thing for our children, and children are having these struggles, and families and dynamics were happening all over the world. Children are children. So they still have these same needs. And it so opened and broadened my world that I kept finding myself growing and stretching and wanting to impact and make a difference. Because I used to think things happened to me, but I didn't realize I was the one who could impact and make a difference. And it brought me back to my pre-K teacher who made 2 sentences made a difference in how I viewed myself as a person. And so that kind of was my journey. So when Dr. Ferguson called me and she said, this is a population, our early childhood numbers and our demographics are changing such that the median age in our district is about 32 to 36 years old. And so people are having children, and we're having young families come to Prosper. We need to grow this program, and we need to be serving our children not in isolation and not in a centralized classroom while the gen ed students are in another classroom. And so I'm always up for a challenge. And of course, I'm always up to do something that I know I'm going to be supported by in our district. And it's something that I hit the ground running. I was focused on a K-5 campus because I had been a principal and that had been my jam. And I could tell you the ins and outs of all the programs that have been on my class and all the research, but I had to dig in and start really educating myself on early childhood and all the dynamics that there are in there. And, how are we going to start from the mindset of, well, this is how we've always done it, meaning, that's always the phrase. And we started thinking about, okay, we're coming out, we're all in person. The first year we weren't sure with just ripping the Band-Aid off and having 17 blended classrooms. We at first were just going to ask to pilot 2. And Dr. Ferguson's like, why would we only provide 2 of this model when we know it's what's best for children? And we're like, okay, well, let's see if we can find the staff, that
Yeah.
because we didn't have that many teachers at that time. And it was a big ask to say, hey, we really want you to come teach, but we're going to need you to take this test and, study for that. And really ensuring that they felt supported, like, we'll help you study, here's a study guide, because really it was just taking a test to have that additional certification, right? And then we had to think, well, where are they at? They might have the mindset that this sounds amazing and they have that buy-in, but they're going to need other types of professional development in order to feel truly prepared, because the pre-K guidelines and the standards are still the same, right?
Right.
Whereas if they were in just a special education classroom, you're working off of those students' IEP, and you're working on that specific child's goals and meeting that child and taking data on that. Now we've raised the bar because, yes, we're still doing that for our special education students, but we're still providing high levels of instruction with the standards of the early childhood guidelines. And so helping them understand that was actually easier than we thought, even though it's not easy at all. But
Right.
it's because when you start something like this, it has to be an all-in approach. You have to be in the trenches with them. I can't tell you how many times we were on 5 different campuses the first year and the second year of this journey. And we must have rearranged furniture. We found solutions because a K-5 campus isn't built for a 3 and 4-year-old child.
Right.
They're built for a 5 to 10 or 11-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
So it's trying to make the actual physical space work, and it can be done. So that's why I tell schools well, our district isn't building a school like this. We don't have that luxury. And I'm like, we did it for 2 years, and we will possibly overflow and have to have some other classes on other elementary campuses. But there again, it's a mindset. It's saying, are we doing what's comfortable for the adults, or are we doing what's best for children?
I love that.
Children don't know the difference of the environment if the why behind it and the intentionality is still there. A sandbox is a sandbox. It might look really, really cute at Calhoun because we got to pick out the design and all, but it's still a sandbox, and it's still providing that sensory input. It's still providing limitless opportunities for learning. A table is a table. You can still write your name in shaving cream or do Play-Doh, whatever you're doing. It is just, it's the vehicle through which you're providing that learning. And so that's kind of been my journey, is just to grow and learn in my own craft, and then try to build a community myself, because I'm a singleton. I'm the only person that is over early childhood, and that's most districts. probably across the United States, I would think. I know we created our own North Texas cohort. And so we started connecting. I started connecting the principal of Calhoun because she had been a K-5 principal. And now
Hmm.
her world was just pre-K. And so it was like, ooh, you're opening a school. And by the way, here's all the new things you're going to need to learn.
Right.
And it's been phenomenal, but connecting her too with other principals, because that role and responsibility is very different. And then also we have our behavior specialists, our speech pathologists, our whatever, connecting them with, well, how do you do this in your district? And just having that communication and those lines of communication open, because at the end of the day, no matter what district you're in, if you're a private, you're public, your goal is to do what's best for children. You want to meet the needs of the students that you're serving, and you want to be great at it.
Hmm.
Um, and I think when you have the right people in that mindset, um, and you don't isolate yourself and put your head in the sand and pretend that there's nothing else going around that's not happening or not great. I've learned so much from my colleagues, and we have a group chat. We meet throughout the year. We do learning walks. We reflect on our practice. And while each district does things a little bit differently, we've taken a little bit of what we can do and make it better and
I
shared it
love
with,
that.
our staff and our families.
I love that community mindset. Could you speak a little bit to something that you mentioned, just that shift from being a K-5 principal for you and for those that you've mentored? You're saying that's this big shift, right? To go from being a K-5 principal to being a principal or an administrative director in a purely pre-K program. So, what were some of those big shifts that you recognized making that transition? Because I'm thinking those might be helpful, whether there's somebody who's lucky enough to be in your position that they are focusing on a pre-K program, but also for those principals who are K-5 principals and now they've added on a pre-K program. What are some of those shifts and perspectives that have been helpful for you?
I think the biggest part what it is really educating the administrative staff on a how children are able to attend pre-K, because we had some administrators who they might have been a middle school teacher before they became
Hmm.
an administrator, and they had no real idea about early childhood and what that entailed. But helping them realize that the why behind it and why we want to have a robust program, whether we're on a K-5 campus or not. But then if you think about it, because of the blended model, on most K-5 campuses, you're not having to be the expert in special education and general education. As a K-5 administrator, I may have on a typical campus of 800, I might have had maybe 75 students who were special education, maybe. On a campus that's an early childhood school with a blended model, last year alone, the administrative staff had 250 students, which were special education. If you think about the amount of assessment, ARDs that take place and the legalities, it's an added layer of knowledge and skills that you have to know and understand, and really knowing the terminology that's entailed in that, in the PLAFs and in the paperwork. You're having to really know, because you're a part of that ARD committee decision, and you're making decisions that can impact that child's life, and you're agreeing, you're a part of that. And also, you're the first face mostly that the parents will see in that first ARD meeting before, say, their child attends your school. So you're also the first face that might be partnering, saying, welcome, we're glad your child's here. Here's how we're going to navigate this. This is what this might look like in pre-K. Because for a parent who just found out that, say, their child is autistic or whatever the eligibility might be for that child, it's scary. And they have to trust us with their most prized possession. And that's daunting.
Mhm.
And you think, okay, we have many children that are coming to us that are nonverbal. Some are learning to speak, and they will, but some are learning how to navigate a device with, say, a
Right.
Proloquo, like it's like an iPad, but it's programmed to help them with symbols and help them communicate in the way that they can be effective and share their wants and needs. Um, but that's a lot on an administrator. And if they've been a K-5, say, even if they're an experienced administrator, and now we've just put another program on their campus, which is fours and or threes, the ECSE, it's scary. And a lot of times they don't want to mess up, but also they're also wondering how long might they be there. And a lot of it is just fear. But we're fortunate that we have plenty of people that are here to help support and educate them on, well, this is what it would look like, and how about we sit in and be with you through until you feel comfortable. And I would say ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions, because there's no silly questions.
It's such a gift for these children and these families to have someone like you and other administrators like you who are advocates. And that's what I heard you saying was part of that shift was seeing yourself as an advocate for those families, to welcome them, to guide them, to support them and help them in this transition. And I've noticed that you are also an advocate for play.
Yes.
And that's part of why you brought me in. And those are a lot of the discussions that we've had. And so I wanted to hear a little bit about that as well. What are some of the things that have shifted your perspective on play and made you such an advocate and a proponent for play in your program?
I think that, I think through the broadening of my world, but also through my own practice as an early childhood teacher, teaching, pre-K, but mostly kinder, first and second. Um, I didn't teach whole group, really. I was already incorporating a sense of play in my own classroom, because I am such a hands-on tactile learner myself,
Hmm.
and they need to be engaged, and they do not need to be sitting on the carpet, crisscross applesauce, just listening and not talking or not doing anything. And I thought to myself, how are we going to incorporate this into this standard, and how am I going to make learning fun?
Hmm.
And that's how my class ran. It just, that's what my belief system was, is that they learn by doing. And you know I will say too, as we grew in prosper, our demographics grew, and because our population with a high emergent bilingual population, um, I noticed that, unlike some of the years before, the parents learned differently wherever they learned, and they were learning in some sense. They were like, we've been practicing our flashcards, we know 1 + 1 is 2. He knows some sight words, and this is them preparing them for kinder, right?
Hmm.
And we would be like, okay, well, that's memorization, but what we're not. And so we would show them, and I started doing parent trainings just when I was a K-5 principal, because I found that our parents would not understand how we were teaching their child, right? Even
Hmm.
K-5. And so I started saying, okay, I want to make sure they're understanding that this is how your child can learn, and this is how your child can be flexible in their thinking. They don't need to know that just 1 and 1 is 2, or that this word says go. What does that mean? What is the
Right.
meaning behind that's word call? This is the meaning behind it. Or how can I be flexible in how this looks, or how can I have a different perspective based upon this? How many ways can we do this? There's more than one way. And so I think for me, the advocacy of play is that, I mean, adults still like to play. I mean, we have game nights, we have this and
Right.
that. I mean, we are innate play people, right? We
Mhm.
learn by doing. What
Mhm.
we're doing is we're building schema with our emergent bilinguals and all of our children who maybe don't have that foundation of what I'm doing, and how they think they're just playing with blocks in the construction room, but really they're learning measurement. They're learning more or less. They're learning, so many different things in block play. And that's what we love your letters. Our parents were like, wow, I didn't know that's a precursor for them learning, algebra and this and that. And we're like,
Uh-huh.
yes, there is research behind all this. And so I think it's just been a part of my teaching, my parenting with my own children, and something I've just evolved and encouraged along the way. But never have I seen it more important than at the very foundation of their learning. So that's kind of how we've tried to connect our family engagement nights, by showing them, and then we send them home with some things that they can practice and
I love that.
extend into their home. Things that
Mhm.
might be like natural to someone like you or me is things to tell them they could do at the grocery store, or, you know, just different places that they go, that is something that's an errand for them, but it could be something just so educational for their children. And it's
Right,
just,
just having those conversations in the
yes,
store,
yes.
interactions. So, did you find much resistance as you worked with other people in your district, as you're creating a new program and you're building this together? Um, and you're coming from this background and this perspective of early childhood principles and play. Did you find any resistance from other layers when you said play is going to be a really important part of this program? You have a very supportive superintendent, so I'm assuming I know part of the answer, but I'm curious what some of those conversations were like to get others on board and to build a coalition around this vision that you have for play-based, developmentally appropriate learning for this pre-K program.
There were a couple of teachers that didn't believe in it, and really we've only in the whole time lost 3 teachers that decided that wasn't for them. We didn't lose them, they just decided to teach another grade, not
Find a
pre-K
better fit.
blended, right? And at the end of the day, if they didn't believe in it, that wasn't going to be a best fit, right? We can
Hmm.
honor that
Right.
they wouldn't have been the best fit for our model. And we supported them in their own journey. I think the K-5 principals, it was hard because the teachers felt like when the principal would go in their room to evaluate, like, even though we had the checklist for them, that was the pre-K checklist and what to look for and how to rate them, they were like, I think they think we're just playing, and that it's not have meaning behind it, and it's not purposeful. But so we had to, there was a little bit, but we had 2 years of that, and depending on the principals, overall they were amazing, and they just didn't know what they didn't know. They were just
Hmm.
following, their things that they have to assess in each domain. And so I think that was the biggest issue. But really, too, I think with any new program that you are starting, you have to invest in not only the teacher, the mindset of the administration, but the paraprofessionals, because we have amazing paraprofessionals. Our goal is that our paraprofessionals, the children don't know who the teacher is and who the para is. They don't call them, hey, lead teacher, or hey, paraprofessional.
Right.
That's just one of their adults. That's their go-to. And the goal is that you walk in a room and there's 3 adults that you yourself couldn't pick out who
I
is the
couldn't.
triple certified teacher, right?
Right. I couldn't tell the difference. They were so cohesive and everyone was so amazing. I couldn't tell which was
Yes.
which.
And that's the goal, because we know that, let's say Johnny doesn't have really a connection to the teacher. He likes the lead teacher, but he has a connection to Miss Pavlov because she likes dogs and he likes dogs, or they talk about this character and she likes that character. And, at the end of the day, if a child has a person, right, that makes
Mm-hmm.
him want to get up and go to school and makes him feel safe, we want him to come and be with that person. It doesn't matter what her title is. It could be our custodian. We have amazing staff custodians. They want to be there, even though it's the messiest school on earth because they're the youngest. We make lots of messes, but we have amazing custodians, and sometimes the custodians are some of our kids' favorite people because they
Mm-hmm.
see them every day.
Well, and you've really built a whole community around it. I mean, it's
Yes.
within your school and it's beyond your school. And I think when you share this vision together, which you've done, and I know you haven't done it alone, but you with your team,
No, I'm only a small part because I will tell you, my Linda Smith, who was the special education person, she taught me so much. Of course, our superintendent, and Dr. Hickey. I mean, like, it takes a village. And then our school board, we could have all said we want it and our superintendent wants it. But if our school board didn't support it too, it wouldn't have happened
Hmm.
because our triple certified teachers, they get paid an extra stipend because they're SPED certified and early childhood certified. So if you
Hmm.
think about even budgetary, and finances, that's added cost for this program, but they see the value. And I think because we do believe in building capacity, you can't have capacity without building a community
Mm,
because it can't fall apart if just one person isn't there, right? It,
right.
it can't. It can't be contingent on one or two people. It has to collectively be the whole.
Yeah. So
So
as you've shared that vision with your, like you said, the whole community, it's the school board, it's the administration,
it
it's the
is.
teachers themselves, the parents, when they're unified in that vision and that mission, as you've helped them to see, and I love that you said they valued it because they understood. You and your team have helped everyone else to understand here's why it matters. We don't just want the money, we want the money to support these goals and to support
Yes.
these things that matter. That there, I could sense there was this momentum behind that because there was such a shared purpose and there was a shared vision, and that because of that, there was a shared value for the work that was being done. And that just seems to propel the work to continue to go forward and to go forward with that momentum.
Yes, I think it every year it's kind of like childbirth. You end on this great note because you've lived the whole year and you've seen the growth, and we have so many more children that are special education and they're going to gen ed in kinder instead of a centralized program, right? And the parents want us to extend this program, and that's hopefully in the works for upcoming. But if not, less and less children are going to centralized because they are a fit for gen ed because we've leveled so much of that and they're ready for it. But I will say you start back over in August because you get a whole new crop of children and we don't know them, and with the growth, they come in and you're like, wasn't this hard last year at the beginning of the year? And it's hard every year, everywhere, because for the most part, they've never been in a school setting.
You're
And so,
starting over.
and the needs are greater,
Hmm.
but that's all over. It's not just here. To
Hmm.
my point, children are still children. So
Yeah.
these children are all over the world. It's not that they're just in Texas and Prosper. So, I think really it is, but it's saying to the others is we're all in this together because we believe so deeply that what we're doing matters and it will make a difference. And I have to believe that these children will go on and maybe they'll still remember when they're old like me, their experience in pre-K like I did. And the one or two things that I remember my teacher telling me that still made me feel like, oh, I am a leader and I do take care of people in my charge.
I think that's beautiful. That full circle moment, right?
Yeah, that's our
And it's
hope, right?
right. That's what we hope for. Well, thank you so much for sharing so much. And I mean, we could talk for hours because what you've built
I think
is,
you're going to have to come for another visit, is all I can say.
I would love to come for another visit. It's so inspiring to see what you're doing and to know that, like you said, I feel like you've built something really special. And at the same time, to your point, it doesn't have to be that special. It could be everywhere, that these opportunities could be for all children because the needs are everywhere.
I believe it can happen. It's not easy, but it is a mind shift, and it is what's best for children.
Mhm.
And at
Well,
the
and
end of
that
the day, why wouldn't we do that?
absolutely. Well, thanks for sharing your perspectives here and for sharing them in your community so that you can gather together and make those things happen for young children. It's really inspiring. Thanks for sharing your story.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks again for listening to Not Just Cute, the podcast. You can find show notes at notjustcute.com/podcast/episode 79. There, you'll find links to the Brenda Calhoun Early Childhood School website, along with pictures and videos of the school, as well as other tidbits I know you'll love. If you watch one video, you have to see what parents have to say about what this program has done for their children. It's really amazing. Be sure to reach out to Michelle Scogin if you'd like to learn more about the program or take a tour of Calhoun. You'll find her contact information linked in the show notes as well. You can also hit up the show notes for a link to the Why We Play letters. Head to notjustcute.com/podcast/episode 79 or go straight to notjustcute.com/why we play to get signed up and download your free sample letter. I'm Amanda Morgan. You can read more on my blog and sign up for the Not Just Cute newsletter at notjustcute.com. You can also stay tuned for social media updates on Instagram by following me at Amanda_NotJustCute. Thanks for listening today, and as always, thank you for standing up for children and for childhood.